Hello and welcome to France, where we still have hope of a title race after Marseille and Lens roared to victories at the weekend. PSG looked set to drop points in Lyon, but for the second week running, the champions grabbed an injury time winner, so they continue to set the pace, 2 points clear at the top. Lyon were left fuming with referee Benoit Bastien on a weekend that saw more maddening red cards in Ligue 1. Monaco striker Folarin Balogun must be wondering if football is still a contact sport here. At the other end, Metz make it 3 victories on the bounce, piling the misery on Francaise and Nice, while basement club Auxerre look to be in big trouble after their latest loss away to Angers. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's a pleasure to have you on board. Let's get stuck straight into the action, and with me to go through everything, I've got Jonathan Johnson, the French football expert, who has kindly tuned in this morning. How are you doing, John?
Doing very well, thanks. And you guys? Looking forward to a little bit of a break with the internationals coming up, but it's been a great weekend of action to lead us into it.
It has. Lots going on. George Boxall is with me as well, French football journalist, resident Marseillais. George cut his night out short. Is that right, George? Last night to make sure you're focused today.
Yeah. I'm a consummate professional like that. You know, only the 3 beers, controlled environment. Back, get some good sleep, and up for the early start. And you know what? I'm full of beans today, and I'm happy to be with you guys. I feel like we've got a thing going with me, Jonathan, and Matt. Whenever we're on the podcast, I feel like I have a really good time in terms of the chemistry between us. I love it. It's great.
It's good. I'm still trying to work out if George is actually still drunk from last night, but apparently not. No, I believe you, George. You are a consummate professional. I'm in Lyon. I'm in a hotel this morning because I had the fortune of commentating a really good game at the Groupama Stadium last night. It was Lyon 2. Paris Saint-Germain 3, and it was quite interesting. I have to admit, going into it, I was thinking this may be a bit of a letdown because Lyon PSG, it's always such a, in the last 10, 15 years, it's always been such a big occasion. And looking at the starting lineups, looking at the numbers of players missing, of course, PSG without Hakimi, Nuno Mendes, Desiree Doué and Dembele now, Lyon missing a host of players as well. We know they've lost Malik Fofana, but he's not the only one. Corentin Tolisso was only fit for a place on the bench. They had to cobble a team together. But it was a cracking game, this, John. And in the last 10 minutes, it was sort of 2-2. Lyon had come back into it twice. And I think I said in the commentary, they're looking the more likely to get a winner. They were putting PSG under some pressure. But PSG, I heard Luis Enrique talking about the mentality. Second weekend in a row, they found a late winner. It was just after Tagliafico got sent off. So Lyon had 3 minutes to sort of hold out in added time with 10 men. And João Neves headed in a fantastic header at a corner, winning goal. And PSG getting away with it, John? Or is this their mentality and their extra sort of maybe aura that they have?
I think there's definitely an argument to say that Lyon were hard done by. I feel like they would have been good value for the draw. I think you look at some of the chances created during the game as well, and there's an argument that Lyon could have found themselves in front at some point as well. Tagliafico, before he got sent off, hit the post late in the first half, I think it was. So there were definitely chances on both sides. I would say that PSG definitely had a dominant period in the second half at 2-2, where I thought they might just sneak it and win 3-2 in the end. But the goal didn't come until right at the end, like you said, after Tagliafico was given his marching orders for 2, in my opinion, justified yellow cards. I can understand the grief from the Lyon fans, but I think when you look back at both incidents, I can understand why both of those merited yellow cards. Whether everyone else on this podcast can, we'll get to that in a minute, I'm sure. But ultimately, I do think that there is a lot of credit we have to give PSG for this newfound mentality. Previously, they would have crumbled. They might have even conceded that final goal and gone down. But I think it was a great game. To your point, it was lacking a lot of the expected stars who would have normally lined up in this fixture, but I still think that it was a fantastic occasion, some brilliant goals. I'm sure we're going to wax lyrical about Ainsley Maitland-Niles' lobbed finish, which was just incredible. But I think it's also You look at PSG's ability to bounce back from having conceded, having been pegged back twice. I do think that merits, some kudos as well.
For sure. And winning away at Lyon is not an easy thing to do, even if Lyon are missing a lot of players as well. The goals were definitely of high quality. Warren Zaïre-Emery racing in and smashing the ball high into the net for PSG's first goal. Afonso Moreira, Lyon's young Portuguese winger, who's he played well again actually last night and scored a good goal. He's coming in because Malik Fofana's out injured. It was a lovely goal racing in behind, and then PSG. So this is another of the contentious points. I'm not saying the referee got this wrong. I'll put this to the table, but basically Tanner Tessman had his back to goal about 25 yards out. He dawdled a bit on the ball, and Vitinha, who is always so alert, sort of came in and just nipped it away from him. It was a challenge from behind. He did manage to get essentially the ball, mainly the ball. He did touch Tanner Tessman's leg with his left knee as well, and Kvaratskhelia scored a brilliant finish. And then Lyon equalised again, didn't they? Maitland-Niles. So that was a goal made in England. Tyler Morton with a lovely ball over, and then Ainsley Maitland-Niles with a brilliant lob because he had to sort of turn his whole body and flipped it over Chevalier from about 40 yards. Before we get into the refereeing decisions, because there were one or two others that I want to discuss, George, what did you make of it? Would you agree with John that PSG deserve a lot of credit for this and logically won it?
Yeah, so I was out and about in Marseille last night. I was roaming the streets, but I managed to get back for the second half. I was even in an épicerie. How do you translate to English an épicerie? That's like a corner shop. A grocery store? It's like one of those small corner shops where I bumped into a bunch of Marseille fans, and it was on one of those kind of dodgy televisions in the corner. And there were a lot of people praying that OL would go on to get the winner, and I got back home immediately, and I saw the Tyler Morton ball for Maitland-Niles and the lovely lob. I think Lucas Chevalier was a little bit off his line. I think he was about 12 meters out from goal. I don't think his positioning was a tad off. And like PSG, they dug deep. I mean, credit to them. Neves for the goal. I think he was the extra man in the box. I think OL were kind of not flabbergasted, but a bit confused after the red card in terms of who was marking who in the box. And I think Neves just gets that flick on, OL switch off, and and PSG get the winner. Credit to them, but I just don't think the refereeing was that good. I mean, we can talk about the refereeing later on, but I think specifically in this game, I mean, the whole weekend there was some dodgy decisions going on. But I would have just called it like trigger happy, typical French refereeing to not be too controversial.
I think it's a problem. I think it's become a real problem this season. Like all of the red cards, yes, and I think general standards as well. John, I'll put it to you. So the Vitinha tackle on Tessman, personally, and in commentary, I didn't think they'd go to VAR. I think it was clean enough, even if it was from behind, and I think that's Tessman's fault. I was surprised listening to French radio where I was walking home and they were just saying, "Yeah, ridiculous decision. How can they not? It's a clear foul." But
were you really surprised?
Well, maybe not. This is our English perspective, though, where we like a good tackle, even if it is from behind. But where I don't understand is the Zabarnyi handball. I don't understand why that didn't go to it did go to VAR, didn't it? They had a look at it and didn't invite Benoit Bastien over because he's got his arm miles up above his head. It's not 100% clear as to whether he touches it with his hand, but I think he does. And if he does touch it, it's a penalty. So I don't know, John. What are your feelings?
So specific to the Tessman incident, I don't think it was a foul. I think the only thing that could have really made an argument for it was sort of Tessman's movement as he went to ground, and I think that was more out of probably out of shame for losing the ball in such a critical area as anything else. I think you look at his facial reaction as well, sort of once he got up, and I think he recognised that he'd messed up as well. That was an absolutely key giveaway, and for me, I don't think there's really any argument. I would probably have an easier time arguing against one of Tagliafico's yellow cards as opposed to that. But I share both of your frustrations, sort of about the is just crying out for right now is some consistency, some ability to cling to some sort of semblance of logic in the way that some of these decisions are made, and the fact that we can't even have that basic privilege, I think, is hugely frustrating for everyone who loves the French game.
It reminds me of something that I think I heard Tom Williams actually say in one of the earlier episodes of this podcast, and now since he said it a few weeks ago, I think it might have been the first episode, it's kind of stuck in my head. Referees in France, they culturally do things by the book to the letter, and there's less of a consideration for consistency, and also less of a consideration for the spectacle. I'm just thinking about the Monaco Lens game as well, the Balogun red card, which I don't think is a red card at all. Like it's Balogun studs are on the Lens player's just on his upper foot, but it's not something, he's not trying to kill him, But yeah, there is this cultural difference, and I know we're going to say that as Englishmen, but it's frustrating, as John said, for people that love the game and that love the spectacle of the game, that all we're talking about now is the refereeing decisions. When if there isn't that controversial decision on Tagliafico, we could be talking about a 2-2, how amazing the game was. And talking about a potential title race, but obviously I would be slightly biased in wanting a title race.
Well, it's not just because PSG won. I mean, maybe there is some frustration in general from neutrals when PSG get the decisions because they've got so many other sort of advantages insofar as their squad is so strong, etc. But I think French referees are not necessarily bad, and they're actually rated quite highly. I think the performances have dropped, and I think that comes from higher up. I think that comes from the instructions they're getting. So it's Anthony Gauthier, the head of referees at the moment, along with Michael Landreau, which is quite interesting, the former France goalkeeper. And for me, that's the problem, because they're giving the instructions to these referees. They're telling them, where the threshold is for a serious foul play, where the threshold is for going to VAR or not. And like you say, there's just no consistency. There's absolutely no consistency, and it's driving people absolutely nuts. And the number of red cards we've had in the first halves of games this season is quite telling, and it does really sort of ruin the spectacle, if you like. But Alexander Lacazette, I was on Twitter last night. I saw him tweeting that Lyon had done very well. He said 12 against 11 men. It was never going to be easy and stuff. And actually, Lyon have come out. They're making a lot of noise. You mentioned Monaco as well. Lyon have said, il est temps de se mettre autour de la table. They want to sit at the table, which is a nice French expression. It's almost like they should be sort of adding with a nice glass of red wine. And let's just have a discussion with the referees. And I think it's necessary. I really do. I think it's just counterproductive having all of these players and presidents and coaches coming out after each game, going crazy. But I do think we've probably given enough airtime to referees. I don't know what you think, boys. Let's get into the heroes and villains. That's what George is looking for. George, are you ready for your heroes and villains, or shall I go to John first?
Go on. We'll do me. So
yes. From the weekend in general, who caught your eye?
So yeah, from the weekend in general. I mean, I was at the Velodrome, so I'm gonna pick a Marseille player this time because they did win 3-0, and I was there and it was good.
For a change.
So my hero of the week, my top of the week is Angel Gomez. Angel Gomez, Englishman. His first half against Brest for Marseille was probably one of the best first halves I've seen of football from Angel Gomez since he joined Marseille in the summer. And basically, Roberto De Zerbi used him as an attacking midfielder who basically roamed between the lines against Brest, and it worked to a pretty efficient degree in the first period. He linked up play between the wingers, the midfield, and Aubameyang up top. He showed some real quality in his crossing as well. Obviously, the goal he got was pretty lucky with Majeki basically flapping at it and letting in his rather pretty tame strike from the free kick. But yeah, I went on French radio, the local Marseille radio at half time. They managed to pick the only English journalist with two English players scoring at the time, and I said to them that we might have to let go of the notion that Angel Gomez under De Zerbi is a holding deeper midfielder, because like he played a lot of the time at Lille, because every time he's played lower, like deeper, he's not had any real effect for Marseille, and he just can't get himself around the pitch like a Matt O'Reilly does, or a Vermeeren can, or he doesn't really have the same physicality as Højbjerg. So I was pretty impressed by Angel Gomez higher up the pitch and having an impact on the game.
And it's good because he's taken his time to sort of find his feet, hasn't he, at Marseille? And it was difficult for him last season. He was out of contract. Lille were not happy that he wasn't extending his deal, and he was basically frozen out by Lille in those last months. And when you think it was just after he broke into the England team, and in England a lot of people were saying, wow, this is the guy that we've needed, this diminutive midfielder who reads the play and just is so technically secure. So it's good to see him. It's probably going to be too late as far as the World Cup is concerned, unfortunately for him. But it's nice. He's a lovely footballer, so it's nice to see him playing well.
Yeah, and I think his long-term goal has been to try and get another England cap. But I think it's been quite a complicated, difficult start for him at Marseille as well, because when he's been put in deeper in midfield, he just can't replicate the amount of the pitch that can get covered by a Matt O'Reilly, like I said before, and I really think the attacking the higher position just behind Aubameyang is a position where he thrives a little bit more, but yeah, so it's positive for him. I think it's taken a while for him to get going, but long may it continue.
Indeed. So your villain, is it related to that same free kick, George, or not?
Oh yeah, Radoslaw Majeki, the goalkeeper on loan from Monaco at Brest. I mean, he got a 2 rating from L'Equipe, and he got a low rating from me on the Get French Football News player ratings as well. Yeah, it was one of the worst goalkeeper performances I've seen in a while. He was looking shaky from the start. He was dodgy coming off his line. He was flapping at crosses. He was pretty lucky in the first 10 minutes against OM that Aubameyang and Paixão basically dragged their shots wide when they were in a one-on-one situation, because his timing was awful when he was coming out to meet these one-on-one situations. And then you have the big mistake from Gomez's free kick, which was, to be fair, I say it was tame, but it was at least hit. It hit straight at the goalkeeper, but hit with a little bit of pace. He flaps at it, slips through his fingers, and Brest are 1-0 down. So yeah, I would say he was someone that was actively putting his side in danger, which is pretty frustrating from a Brest fan's perspective, because they looked pretty organised. I mean, the back line looked well organised in the first half. They kept Marseille at bay, and I think when you're the determining factor and you're putting your own team in danger like that, you are going to be the flop on the Across the Channel podcast.
Yeah, Brest are in big trouble. 10 points. They have the same number of points as Nantes and Lorient, and only Auxerre have fewer points. But we'll talk a little bit more about Marseille in the second half. We're going to talk about Monaco and Lens as well. That was a very interesting game, but the halftime whistle is about to blow here. Okay, so we've got a special feature at half-time today. We're going to try to work our guests a little bit harder, because they've got to earn their crust. I'm paying George and John good money, aren't I, lads? George's face. Well, listen, I'm going to set you a challenge. And we're going to start with George. Now, our regular listeners may be aware of the fact that George has a soft spot for Red Star, the Paris-based football club. Sorry, they're not a Paris-based football club, are they, George? They're just in the northern
Paris
suburbs.
Suburban Club, the northern suburbs, 9-12.
Paris Suburban Club. So, as George is such an enthusiast and a big fan of Red Star, he's written a thesis on them. George, I want to give you the challenge of trying to convince our listeners that they also should be Red Star sympathisers. So you've got 60 seconds to sell Red Star to our listeners. Are you ready?
Right, okay, yeah. Let's do this.
Ready, steady, go.
Right, so Red Star, one of the oldest clubs in France. They were founded in 1897 by Jules Rimet. The Jules Rimet, who would become FIFA president, would be in that song with David Baddiel and Frank Skinner. Stadtbauer, full of character. Supporters are amazing. Tifos. Culture is brilliant. There's lots of history. They've won the Coupe de France 5 times. The main stand, is named after an Italian resistance member who played for the club when he got shot for the Nazis. His name's Rino Della Negra, and the supporters group is named after him. They've been in the wilderness for a while, but they're back in Ligue 2. They're now second in Ligue 2. Greg Poirier is a great manager. They've got a good brand of football. They've got lots of young players from the hotbed of talent in Paris. And they've got some great journeymen also, like Damien Durand. Everyone in France kind of respects them, and they have sexy Kappa shirts. Most soulful team in the Paris region, and you can get pints of Beacon for €5.
Brilliant. 10 seconds left. Anything to add?
It's just amazing. Ali Red Star. Go on, there you go. Surely that works, right?
Very good. That's kind of making me want to go to the Stadtbauer. But yes. They do have history. I didn't know they had 5 French Cups. That's amazing. Yeah,
they were a big team from the 20s to the 40s. They got the majority of their Coupe de France is in the kind of interwar period. They were pretty good, and then they kind of fell off when they got to the 50s and 60s. So there we go.
Interesting. Second in the league, just behind Troyes.
Yeah.
Saint-Etienne are up there as well, though.
Yeah.
Interesting times in Ligue 2. Listen, John, I think George has he set the bar pretty high here. He's set the standards pretty high. Your challenge, John, is to sell us another French club, a club that should be everybody's second favourite team. John, have you can you tell us which one you're going to try to sell?
Yeah, so I'm going to go for Lens. I think this is going to be a relatively straightforward sell, because I think that Lens have a lot in common with, especially the kind of clubs that our Anglophone listeners will be very familiar with.
Okay. So, Jonathan Johnson, you've got 60 seconds to tell us why everybody out there should be following Lens and getting behind Les Saints-et-Or.
Awesome. Right. So, Lens, I think they're the quintessential cult club. Obviously, they don't have the same rich history in terms of trophies won as Red Star, but they do have a Ligue 1 title to their name from just before the 2000s. I think it's a wonderful club where the stadium holds more than the local population, which is quite an oddity, but creates a very, very passionate atmosphere at the Stade Bollard, which you really have to experience in person at least once. They've become more competitive in recent years, gotten themselves back into the reckoning for UEFA competition involvement as well, which definitely is where Lens belong. I think it's very difficult to find many better stories right now than the renaissance of Florian Thauvin being coached by none other than Pierre Sage, ex-Red Star alumni. And what more than can you ask for, really, than the trademark frites that you get to eat at every game? I think Lens have this wonderful identity as a club which represents not only Lens itself, but all of the people in and around the north.
Very good, John. Very good. That's you've sold it well. I think their anthem as well. Personally, their anthem deserves a mention as well. Les Corons. When you mentioned the atmosphere at Bollard, but when the whole stadium is singing that, it beats Liverpool's "You'll Never Walk Alone," hands down.
There's so much to talk about as well. I mean, you've got the main section of ultras take up a position on the side of the pitch instead of behind the goal. It's completely different, but also at the same time very much in keeping with the kind of passion and energy that I think many people come to expect from sort of your standard Premier League clubs. And people seem to think it doesn't exist in France, but it does.
It does indeed. And thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, George. Please let us know what you think of all that. If you think you're going to follow Lens or Red Star after that, or not at all. There's another club maybe that tickles your fancy a little bit more. Please do get in touch, league1podcast@gmail.com. Please do also just take a moment now. If you want, you can press pause and go onto your podcast platform, do a little rating and subscribe to us on your podcast platform, and also on YouTube, because we are on YouTube as well. That would be much appreciated. Now, the listener quiz from last week, it was a Who Am I? The clue was, I left my homeland in 2004, embarking on a European odyssey that would span more than 2 decades. While I did play for 3 years in Belgium, the vast majority of my career has been spent in Germany and in France. I played for 2 historic German clubs. Claude Puel was my first Ligue 1 coach. Winning the Champions League is probably the highlight of my career, although I did play 13 times for my country. Sadly, back in my homeland, I am mostly remembered for taking part in an historic defeat. Just reading through that, I think I've given you too many clues, and we did get quite a few people who got the correct answer. Congratulations, Chris Cole, John Crossan, George Rodriguez, Nick, Bart, Pierre, and Abib. Congratulations. You all got it, and you will be getting 1 point added onto your tally in the overall league standings. But for now, it's time for the next question. If you think you know the answer, drop us an email, league1podcast@gmail.com. So this is a more straightforward, shorter question. It's about Tony Cascarino, the English-born Irish international. Tony Cascarino played for 3 clubs in France. 2 questions for you. Can you name the 3 clubs for 1 point? And can you tell us which of those clubs awarded him with the Freedom of the City? Such was his popularity there. League1podcast@gmail.com. If you think you know the answer, now I can see the players coming back out of the tunnel. It's almost time for the second half. We're going to kick off our second half at the Stade Louis II. Monaco 1, Lens 4. What a statement result this is from Les Soyeurs. Pierre Sage's team outplaying Monaco. We've talked about the Folarin Balogun red card. It was completely nuts. George said, maybe he just brushed the top of the Lens player's foot with his studs. But honestly, it was, there was no force in it. It was barely even a challenge. And I think everybody is unanimous in deciding that was ridiculous. Probably Balogun went down a bit easily for the penalty as well that he earned. So I think Lens fans were unhappy with that as well. But to focus on the football, Jonathan, Lens outplayed Monaco. Yes, they were down to 10 men, but even before then, they looked like the better side. And I want to dwell on that front 3, which honestly I didn't expect to be doing as well as it is doing. Odsonne Edouard, after a year not playing, basically, at Crystal Palace and at Leicester. Florian Thauvin, obviously, back in France. And Wesley Saïd, who he's always been a lovely player to watch when he turns it on, but he's been so inconsistent. But he got 2 goals at the weekend, and those 3, they were just such a handful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're an absolute pleasure to watch at this moment in time. I'm very biased. Obviously, I mentioned him earlier. I think watching Thauvin returning to France and potentially trying to play his way into contention for a serious place in France's squad ahead of the World Cup is one of the nicer sort of subplots in Ligue 1 this season. And I think looking at the way that they're combining, I think Odsonne Edouard's return to France and revitalisation has been really fascinating to see. But also I think Wesley Saïd now morphing from this, I'm not going to say super sub, but somebody who would be sort of an impact player to be sent on from the bench into proper starting 11 material under Pierre Sage has been really, really interesting to watch develop as well. Because I feel like Saïd has always had this knack of contributing, chipping in with really important goals for Lens, but primarily in sort of a 15 to 20 minute period towards the end of games. But now he's starting to actually show the kind of consistency that's been lacking for the majority of his career. And I find that he's a little bit of a throwback to the early years under Franck Hez in Ligue 1, where you had a number of these players who were fairly familiar to sort of Ligue 1 and Ligue 2 level, but hadn't really found the consistency with which to play, and they really helped to turn Lens into a force to be reckoned with. Saïd, I think, has bloomed a little bit later than all of those other players, and to see Lens and everything clicking into place now, very similarly to how it did under Ez and how it did at times under Will Still as well. It's an absolute pleasure to watch, and I think Lens are one of those really crucial clubs in terms of the identity of Ligue 1.
I think it's interesting. It's so impressive as well what PSG is doing. I think you're right. There is a similar kind of dynamic to what we saw under Francaise, but this is a new team now. Like it took them a while. Obviously, they had this team that finished second under Francaise in 2023. Players sort of slowly but surely moved on, and they've absolutely rebuilt. We've talked about the good summer signings: Samson Baidu at the back, Mamadou Sangare in the midfield, and of course this front three. I mean, I certainly didn't expect this, George, but they moved joint top with Marseille with that win. Obviously, PSG are now 2 points clear of them, but they're in the mix and serious Champions League contenders.
Yeah, I mean, Lens are really the team to beat this year. I think they've come on leaps and bounds since Pierre Sage was named as manager, and I think he's really very quickly put his stamp on this Lens side in terms of the style of play. I mean, it does help when you recruit Mr. Florian Thauvin to be the kind of creative centre of this Lens side, but. Yeah, they're certainly up there. I mean, they're level on points with Marseille, and it's tight. It's really, really, really tight between those sides that are on PSG's coattails at the moment. And I think they are they're a serious contender for Champions League football. I mean, they have kind of taken the place of Monaco in that regard this year. You know, where Monaco were kind of the side that were chasing with Marseille last season. And I think, certainly the team to beat this season.
Just a word about Pierre Sage, because I find him quite funny sometimes, because I think this is going to sound harsh what I'm going to say, but I don't think there's a less charismatic coach insofar as like when he talks, like it's so monotone. It's like, he has quite hushed tones as well. And again, I was watching the scenes in the dressing room afterwards. And the players are completely the opposite. They're all, or they seem to be quite extrovert, and they were all like dancing and chanting, and they were pleading or chanting for Pierre Sage to give them a whole week off. It was quite funny. They were like, une semaine. And Pierre Sage, like, deadly serious. Like, after they've been chanting for like 5 minutes, he goes, no, sorry guys, I've given you 1 day already. This is all I can do, or something. And they're like, like he can't even join in with the banter and stuff. But I like that as well, because he's just a fairly ordinary guy, and there's no, like, sometimes, I'm not saying De Zerbi is an actor, although maybe there is a bit of that in there. Sometimes you feel that coaches are playing a role, but Pierre Sage is just a solid bloke who knows his football.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. I think I've already said on the podcast how I bumped into him in a car park after a Red Star Versailles game, and he's very understated, very much a coach's coach, but he's got kind of this very subtle French humor as well, very subtle, very kind of dry. But yeah, very much a coach's coach. You can tell that he's been in charge of basically Lyon's academy, that he took the assistant manager role at Red Star as well. And these are all kind of, he was basically the brains behind the Habib Bey style of play at Red Star, and you can really tell how he in terms of ideas, he is an ideas man, and he's very much he's a coach's coach.
Coach's coach indeed. Pierre Sage going great guns with Lens, and we're now going to turn our attentions to Mr. Jonathan Johnson, who's going to give us his tops and his flops, his hero and villain from the weekend. John, what have you got for us?
Well, heroes, first of all, I think I have to go and pay some overdue credit to Metz. I haven't been on in the last week since they've undergone this incredible transformation in form, but I did name them as my flop, my disappointment last time I was on here, so I'm going to give them the credit they deserve for reeling off 3 wins in a row. Now, unfortunately, I was angling at trying to put Nice down as my flop, my disappointment for the week, but Metz confounded me with a fight back from 1-0 down to win 2-1. And you look at the 9 points, it's not just a shot in the arm for Mess's chances of survival. I think it's safe to say that it's kept Le Mignon in the job as head coach, and probably for the foreseeable future will remain the case now. And I think you look suddenly at those players; they've been completely transformed by sort of this recent momentum that they've been gifted with at times. I think, looking at some of the goals that have been conceded against them, but I think in a relegation battle you've got to take those opportunities when they present themselves, and fair play to Metz. They've suddenly moved themselves, I think, out of the relegation zone, given themselves a bit of visibility towards mid-table safety, and I think it's been totally deserved. They haven't stopped making effort even when they've been receiving some pretty big pastings in recent weeks, notably against Lille. And I think fair play to them for proving me wrong, because I did say it felt like it was a non-contest a lot of times when they were taking to the pitch just before this run of 3 straight wins came to being. So I'll take credit for that.
They've looked a bit overwrought at times. You'll take credit for that. I think what's interesting as well, Stéphane Le Mignon has basically got them playing a more attacking style. I think he's kind of said to them, look, it's not working, this kind of backs to the wall, everybody behind the ball. Let's play how we played in Ligue 2, and actually let's try and take the game to our opponents. And they've done that with Gauthier in particular, shining. An interesting little player, Gauthier, and always does well in Ligue 2 and then struggles it in Ligue 1, but it's great to see him actually having some influence. You can still go with Nice as a flop, John. I think they've gone 15 European games without a win. And they managed to lose to Metz at the weekend.
Yes, incredible. I think, to be honest, though, my main motivation for that was going to be that really disappointing midweek defeat. Obviously, it wasn't a great week for French clubs in general. I don't think anyone really covered themselves in glory, with the exception of Strasbourg, so we do need to give them a shout out for keeping the French flag flying on the continent. But actually, what I think I'm going to do is I am going to look at Auxerre's defence as this week's villains, because you look at Pelissier's situation as Auxerre coach at the moment. There was quite a touching scene from the end of the game after losing 2-0 away at Angers, where it's clear the fans aren't giving up on Pélissier as Auxerre's coach. But you look at the goals conceded, one own goal, I think it's Akbar who put through his own net, and then a bit of a goalkeeping calamity from Donovan Leon, which kind of gifted Angers the second goal. It feels for me that the Auxerre players are just not doing Pélissier any favours. How much longer he will be given the chance to turn things around, we'll have to wait and see whether he's still sat on the touchline after the international break.
Sorry, John, to cut in, but the thing is, like we're seeing as well that it can be a good idea to show faith in coaches, to be a bit more patient. Rennes won again, didn't they, at the weekend? So Habib Bey with 2 victories in a row away to Paris FC. We talked about Stéphane Le Mignon, and I think Christophe Pélissier, has done fantastic work at Auxerre and is one of the best coaches. And it was interesting, the fans seemed to still be behind him, and some of them pointing their finger at 2 former Auxerre players. We've got Jean-Alain Boumsong, who's the defensive coach, and Djibril Cissé, the attacking coach. And they seem to be getting more stick than Pélissier. I think Newcastle fans who remember some of Boumsong's howlers when he was playing for them, they might think that this is perhaps a logical sort of situation that Auxerre are now giving goals away, but I'm maybe being a bit harsh. But surely they keep Pélissier.
I would like to think so. I think he deserves that chance, and like you said, there's 2 very strong arguments for that. Nobody would have been putting money on Metz, certainly not me, before going on that run of three straight wins under Le Mignon. Suddenly they look like a team transformed, and we can say not quite the same for Rennes, but you look at some of the results, that's finally starting to pay off, standing by Habib Bey. So yeah, I do think that there is an argument for sticking by Pélissier. Also, you have to look at the managerial market right now. There's always an element of recycling some of the familiar names to Ligue 1 clubs, and it doesn't seem like there's really an obvious candidate right now who could potentially step in and offer a solution to the situation should Pélissier be forced to vacate.
Indeed. So results we haven't mentioned yet. Le Havre 1, Nantes 1. That was a late leveller for Le Havre at the end. Lorient 1, Toulouse 1, another scoreline from Sunday. Strasbourg with a big result. They defeated Lille by 2-0. Emmanuel Emega making his return after 6 weeks out. Strasbourg up to 4th. They're 5 points behind Paris Saint-Germain, and they're looking good. We're going to finish with our last feature match. I know, George, you talked a little bit about Marseille in your top and flop section in the first half, but Marseille 3, Brest 0. An important victory, another important victory for Roberto De Zerbi's side. This.
Yeah, I think it was all about putting the wrongs right from the Atalanta game on Wednesday. Even though there was another refereeing decision in this time in the Champions League that was getting everyone rolled up at the Velodrome. But yeah, really good to bounce back and temporarily go top of the league on Saturday. I know now that PSG have now taken over, but there was lots of intensity, not too many changes. There was Vermeeren coming in, Gomez coming into the midfield. And they did a really good job, really encouraging. Greenwood penalty, that's his ninth goal in all competitions now. It was as I said again, righting the wrongs. De Zerbi was pretty happy after the game. I remember he's not exactly resting on his laurels now. I think I remember him saying, during international break, now I'm going to take my car to the Commandery, the training ground, and then I'm going to take the road to Italy with my cigarettes and my music, and I'll think about the team that's going to play against Nice. And then a local journalist turned around and said, well, Roberto, November is the month that we try and that French people try and stop smoking. And he said, oh, fair point, really. But yeah, I think, I think he mentioned in his post-match press conference as well that, it's typical Marseille. You play pretty much with the same team as you did against Atalanta, but you had the two very, very different performances in terms of I think the key word, again, I think I've mentioned it 3 times now, the key word being intensity. So it was good to get back to winning ways, and then they'll be looking forward to the away trip to Nice after the international break before facing Newcastle in the Champions League.
Yeah, that should be very good. John, we heard from Eric Roy after the game. He said, of course, Marseille are title contenders. If you're Marseille, you have to be competing at the top. And to be honest, it doesn't sound as far-fetched as it might have done 2 months ago. I admit that's partly because of PSG's injuries and PSG dropping a fair few points, drawing quite a few games. Are Marseille title contenders, or is it sort of wishful thinking from a neutral that we're going to get, a real battle for PSG this term?
No, I definitely think that they are title contenders, and I think they've already had a few warning shots in terms of the points dropped, not just domestically, but also some of the games that they, have lost in Europe as well, that they are going to need to be more consistent if they are to maintain those hopes. But for the moment, I definitely think they are title contenders, and I hope that it will last, for the majority of the season, if not the entirety, because I do feel like this Marseille side, and obviously a lot of it has to be contextualized within sort of PSG coming off the back of such a successful season and struggling physically in the way that they have so far this campaign. But I do think that OM's latest retooling certainly seems to be the most convincing of all of the recent summer changes that OM have gone through, and they've been a lot over the last couple of years.
Yeah, Marseille return to action on Friday the 21st away to Nice. We've got some great games coming up. Lens against Strasbourg on the Saturday. Rennes against Monaco. PSG, you would expect to win at home against Le Havre. We'll have to wait and see. All the action coming up after the international break, but we do get a little break from Ligue now. I do hope you've enjoyed listening to Across the Channel again today. Thank you so much to Jonathan Johnson, and thank you to George Boxall. You can go back to bed now, George. You've done a great job of sounding very lively and energetic this morning.
That's what a double espresso does to you.
Great stuff. Thanks for joining. We'll be back again next time. Take care. Goodbye, everybody.